This is step one of the preparation for the water heat system by Sunco reapers. You'll want to remove the passenger seat by removing the four 12mm nuts from the bottom. Take that out and set it aside. You'll also want to remove the passenger and the driver's side speakers by removing the four Phillips screws. You'll also want to remove the front cowling with the switches on it. There will be four wing nut bolts in the rear, one at the top and one at the bottom. You'll also unplug all of your switches. I normally like to number my switches so they go back in the position they are. You'll also notice that you can get to these switch detent tabs here, but on the small ones you can't reach them. So if you use a small hook tool, you could go underneath and pull that aside a little bit to unplug it so those don't break off. Then you'll have the power and ground for the cigarette plug. And then in this hole here is the stereo wire, which that will come in and plug into the stereo, which is right up in this area here. And you'll unplug that and pull that out and out of the way. You'll also want to take the front and rear lockers and move them to the rear to have those out of the way. You'll also draw a line with the marker on here, and you can see here across, this section will be cut out. So when you cut this section out, you want to be careful with these wires. You want to move them out of the way and the harness behind it so you don't get into it. It can be cut out with a Stanley knife, but it is very hard. This is soft in the front, but it's a hard plastic in the rear. So we like to use a little sawzall, a small jigsaw or sawzall, and go up and cut this here. But again, you want to be very careful with your wire harness. You don't want to get into that at all. Also, you want to remove the subwoofer. The subwoofer is located underneath, and that unit will come out with four Phillips screws. This is the subwoofer here. You'll unplug this wire from the stereo system, which is located to the right of the glove box. You'll take that out and you'll have two brackets, and you'll set that aside. The subwoofer will not be reused. That unit has to come out for the heat system. You'll also have four Phillips screws that come out with the subwoofer mounting, two of which you will need to keep. You'll need to reuse these to install the heat system. The next thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to remove the front right and left tire to make it easier to get into the heater lines that you'll have to tap into. This is what it looks like when you cut out the piece that we marked. And you can see the amount of wires that is behind this unit. So you really want to be careful when cutting that you make sure that those wires are out of the way. And you also want to be careful that if you're using an item like this, it's a small sawzall, it's battery operated, that when you're holding the wires out of the way, you want to make sure your fingers are out of the way as well. The next step in preparation for the heater is you will draw 2 1 1/8 holes right here just below the fuse box. So you want to hold these wires up. You can take a bungee cord and stick it through the speaker hole and hook it onto the wires, and then pull it up and hook it onto the unit itself to pull them out of the way if you're doing this by yourself. Then you'll want to drill a 1/4 inch hole right about here and that will be for your clamp that goes to the heater. So if you look on the inside, you'll see what it looks like here. Now on the 4-door unit, the Epic, there is a vacuum box right here. So you'll want to be careful with that when you're drilling these holes. You may have to come over a little closer to the gas lines, or you can take a shim and move the vacuum box to the left and give you room to do this right here. When you're drilling the 1/4-inch hole through the firewall for your clamp, you want to put a piece of metal back here or something back here, because your fuel tank is only about 3 inches from there, and if the bit gets away from you, you could damage the fuel tank or hit one of these fuel lines that's coming down through here. So you want to protect that area as well. Okay, this is how your furnace will be shipped to you. The heat box will be on it. We'll have a 24-inch hose that goes onto the passenger side, approximately a 29 to 30-inch hose on the driver's side. And the reason being it needs to be longer is it has to go up above the steering column, so you need a little bit more room. And there'll be a 12-inch piece here in the middle. We also, after this, I'm getting ready to install this one, so you have two 12-inch pieces that we can cut, and that'll leave you approximately about a 24-inch piece left over. You've got your heat hose, wire ties, your clamps that go on to the furnace. These are the pieces for the Y, and the Y goes on the center part here, and that's for the 2 4 registers. Then you have the 2 rings and 4 screws, they're Phillips screws that hold the ring down. The ring goes on this piece and then screws to this, and then the register duct will hook to this right here and wire tie on. And we'll see that later on in the application. These are your 2 Ys that you'll need to tap into the heat system. You have number 12 clamps for this big size and number 10 clamps for the small. These are the 2 elbows that go through the firewall with the hose clamps, and the 2 grommets that go in the firewall. This is your P-clamp that will hold the 2 hoses that come off of the furnace that come here. This clamp will be roughly right about in this area here to hold those up against the firewall. And then of course your electric 3-position switch and extra wire ties. Okay, once you install the heater, it is a tight fit to try to get it in, but it will go in okay. One thing that you'll want to do is after you get the heater in, you can route the hose just above the USB line and just let it hang out here. And on the driver's side, you're going to go above. There's a bracket right in here underneath the dash that holds the steering wheel in place, and you don't want to go right above that. So that way the hose will set right up in this area behind the dash and then come out the speaker hole. That way it won't rub on the steering shaft anytime during the use. And then your small 12-inch piece will just hang right down here. You want to really be careful. You're going to use the bolts that you took out of the subwoofer, and you'll install them here to hold that in place, and then one on the other side as well. This is a real important step, is this bar right here. This bar is 5 inches in depth, and it can be positioned in several different ways. If you have the furnace sticking too far straight up, it'll hit the mechanism for the windshield wipers. So you want to really get it back here quite a ways. So if you look at this, if you put your tape measure up against the back wall, you're going to be approximately 9 inches to the first part of the bracket, which is the L, and the end of the bracket you're going to be approximately about 10 inches. And that's about where you want that at to get on the right slant. So you really want to check that before you fasten this down. You can hold that in place and turn the windshield wipers on to make sure that the windshield wiper control arms are going to miss the top of the heater box. It is a close fit. You also want to make sure that you get your wires routed around the heat box to where they're not in the way. And you'll notice your gauge wires that you'll see back there are pretty short, and they hang down right above that box. So you want to make sure that you route those to where they're not hitting the windshield wiper arms as well. Typically they do hit the windshield wiper arms without the heat box. It rubs it briefly. So it is kind of a close fit. So you want to make sure that you route those to where they're out of the way as well. Now you want to go ahead and position your switch in your switch collar. A good place to put the switch is directly above the light switches. You can see on the back. But there's not a whole lot of room, and then you got to remember that you cut out a place. And that's right about even with these switches. So if you come over too far, then you're going to be in the way and you're going to have to make a notch into that cutout. And that could be seen later on when you put it all back together. So typically you want to put it roughly about right here. It's a 3-position switch. You can when you put the switch in, put the flat side down, tighten it up with a 9/16 wrench. You see a little flat side on the back of it there. And that'll give you your off position straight up, and then your 3 position high, medium, or low, medium, and high. Now you want to go ahead and put your 4 registers into the switch plate. And you want to get them up as high as you can, because if not, then it's going to get hard to get the ductwork in. You want to typically be about, 1.5 inches from this area to the edge here, and roughly, in here about 1 inch, and that'll give you room to clear. Because if not, this will be setting down here, and then you won't be able to get your registers in. You'll be 1.25 inch hole is what you'll need to drill for those. Again, 1.25 inch hole. Okay, then you'll want to drill a 2.5 inch hole on the dash up here. You want to try to get as close as you can to the center or up above a little bit there. You want to do that on both sides, and that'll be for your defrosters. On the dash put in, you see after you drill the 2.5 inch hole, you can put this in and put the top plate on. You want to put the screw at the bottom and at the top because this dash curves, so that'll help bend this and make that curve. You can go ahead and reinstall your speakers on both sides. And then this will do your defrost, and you can move this all the way around. Okay, here's the installation of the 2 inlet and outlet lines. Comes off of the furnace here. And then this is the hole that we drilled for the P-clamp. And then the lines come in here, these 2 holes here. You want to try to make sure that you put the clamp on the top of the top one, and then on the bottom of the other, because they are close together here. And if you put this down here, it could rub, cause a hole in the future. So this way it wouldn't do that. And then these lines go in that elbow. And this is where you're going to need some help, is on the other side. You want someone to be able to push on this side of the line and hold it in really tight. So when you put the line on the other side, it'll put it up tight against the firewall, and then that'll keep it in really tight and keep your water lines coming through the firewall. You can see, as I was talking earlier, that if you have someone on the inside pushing these out, then you can push this line all the way into the grommet and then tighten it up against the grommet. And you see, no matter how hard I pull on it, it's not loose, and there's no way for water to get up in there and cause any problems. But that line will come down, and then we run the line closest to the fuel tank. We run it right down along this support right here, and we'll wire tie that to that support later. But it runs right down through here and runs over to the other side. And then this line that's on this side here, well, it'll come down and go right into here is where we'll put our Y. and that'll be our next step. Okay, this next step is tapping into the heat system. We're going to put the line right in this area right here, and this is the Y that we use. Now you kind of want this to set like so. That way the heat will come in, because this is your return, and this will come in from here and go right down the top. And if you put it upside down, then it's going to have a hard time flowing. So you want to put it like so, and the front going this way and the back into this line. Also, what I like to do is I take a couple pieces of metal here and take a C-clamp, a welding clamp, and I just squeeze that hose together here, and I did it also way back here. This way, when I cut this line and the radiator is full of antifreeze and the system is full of antifreeze, I'm only going to lose maybe a half a quart, whatever's in that line. It's probably not even a quarter of a cup. But I'll lose maybe a half a quart in the whole process by doing it this way. And that way I don't get a bunch of air pockets in the system. And I'll just cut this line here, and I'll just lose whatever I have there, which is maybe a quarter of a cup. Y in there. This is a hard deal, this line to get in this Y, because there's just no room. You know what I try to do is I'll use a high tack, which is a high tack gasket sealant, and for two reasons. Is number one is it helps slide the hose on, because it is makes it a little loose and slippery before it gets tacky, and then once it gets tacky and you got your clamps on there, it keeps you from ever having any cold water leaks. It seals it up really nice. But you can see that we didn't lose a whole lot of antifreeze. This is my third unit that I've done, so the top of the barrel's a little dirty, but I got a little bit on the floor from it hits the frame and falls down. But typically, if you use your clamp, you'll lose maybe a quarter of a cup. Okay, here's the driver's side. You can see that I still have my clamps on here, which those are ready to come off. I lost about a quarter of a cup of antifreeze, and we have the system put right here going down. The top piece comes up to go in. You can see the line runs clear across, and you want to make sure the line is on this side of the brace for the fuel tank, because if you put it on this side over here, it's going to rub up against the nut and the bolt for the fan, and that could cause a potential problem later on. So you want to run it on the back side of that tube that runs down through there. It's wire tight in 3 places to hold that, and then it just goes in. It's kind of hard to see, but it comes in with the Y to the top, short or the small line to the top, and that's the bottom line to the radiator. So if you don't lose the clamps, naturally you would lose all of the radiator fluid that was there. Okay, now that we have the system completely done, we're going to purge the system. You can pick up a purge system from Matco, Mac Tools, Snap-on, Napa Auto Parts, AutoZone, any of the auto parts stores. This is a purge tool that hooks up to air, and we turn this valve on. It will actually start, you can see the gauge start to drop, and what that's going to do is it's going to purge all of the air out of the system that we've got in it. These systems are very hard to purge. You absolutely do not want to use or add antifreeze from the rear of this vehicle. You want to do it all here at this bottle. If you open the system in the rear, you're liable to get a big air pocket, and it's almost impossible to get out. So do not use that at all. Do everything from here. So we're going to let this purge for about 15 minutes, and you'll find that all of the lines, your radiator lines that go to the system, with the purge system on, they'll start to flatten. And you can see this here is almost a pancake. It's almost flattened. Even our lines that we put in, even they're heavier than what is on the system. you'll see they'll start to flatten. When I squeeze these, they'll just flatten, stay flat. And what that will do is suck all the air out. And then we'll add the antifreeze back in after that. But we'll let this run for a little while and let it cool down, and we'll try to get all the air out. Okay, I've been running the purge system for about 20 minutes now. We've checked the lines, they're pretty well collapsed. I'm fairly satisfied that everything's going to be okay. So what we'll do is turn this line off here. That will keep any air pressure from going back in. And on this system, we'll unhook that line and hook in this line here. And that goes over here to the antifreeze. I have a tube in here to just keep the line straight as it curls up. And once we do that, we turn this line on here, and you'll see that as soon as we turn that on, it'll suck the antifreeze right in. And it'll pretty well clear up. And we'll let that run until it quits running, and the dial quits running. And let that set for a few minutes. And now that I'm satisfied with the antifreeze going in, I'm going to turn this valve off. Take this back off. We'll kind of let it run back in there a little bit. Set this over here because we're going to use it again. And then we want to take this off here. And then what we want to do at this point is we want to take a little pump. You can get one of these pumps from Menards, AutoZone, or it's just a kerosene pump is all it is. And we're going to stick that in. And we're going to pump that down to where the antifreeze level goes down to where it's normal fill, which is just below the crease where the canister goes together. Well, at that point, what we want to do is I always purge 2 times. The first time will probably be good, but I'm going to go ahead and purge it the second time just to make sure that we don't have any air in the system. And then we'll that's the end of that step. Okay, we purged the system for the second time, and we took our system off and we sucked the antifreeze out of it because it was full. And we're just about 1/4 of an inch below this line, which is the glue line where this container goes together. So that's pretty much where it wants to be. We want it about 1/4 of an inch below that, and no higher. And this system is done and ready to go. That concludes the installation of the heat system from Sunco Streakers.